We are inching closer and closer to kickoff, similar to Larry Krueger in a car on Great America Parkway. That's what's happening. We're just over an hour away from kick. We're at the Hilton Santa Clara, just on the other side of the window of their free tailgate, which is absolutely hopping and ready to go. And yep, you can go over to YouTube. We've got all our cameras set up. Larry Krueger is finally here on Willard and Dibs to stop by and chat it up a little bit. We'll continue to take your calls as well, 888-957-9570. But hi, Larry.
What's going on, fellas? Good to see you guys.
Krug. Yeah, how long did that take you?
Yeah, exactly. From the freeway exit, I mean, let's just say if it was a pregnancy, it was only in the first month.
Wow.
There was 8 more months to come.
Man,
wow.
Seriously. That's a couple of trimesters right there.
Yeah, that was something.
Dibs getting flashbacks.
Yeah, too soon. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we're excited to hop into this game with you, though, and I think the obvious first question: how do you think the offense changes with no Brandon Ayuk?
That's a great question because the Giants can't stop the run.
Timeout. I'm sorry, Larry. I hate to do this, but was that really a great question?
It wasn't even a great question. It was a phenomenal question.
We have a contest on our show, and you need to know this because going forward, you will no longer be one that we give credit to. But when either one of us gets that's a good question or that's a great question, we do a whole celebration.
I know you guys do.
I don't know. I don't want to make a big thing out of this.
No,
but
I'm
Larry,
angry right now.
You do say that a lot when you get interviewed.
Yes, I do.
And when you say it to Dibs, he victory laps around the whole room.
Okay.
You do it to me one time, and you throw a flag and don't want it to be allowed anymore.
You took your shirt off last week when he said that.
That's an inaccurate statement.
When I do it for Dan, it's more of an obligatory thing more than anything.
Thank you.
It's like a nervous twitch.
It was the question, is what it was.
Anyway.
And so back to
Answer
IU,
the question.
please, crying out loud.
Let's go. Keep it moving.
The Giants can't stop the run, but Ronnie Bell's pretty good too. So it's like maybe the Niners come out and throw it. I'll just say this: if you shorten the game and you're the 49ers and you go ball control, that's great, but you better not turn it over because you're taking a team that can't score 30 and you're giving them a chance to win by running the ball and dominating the time of possession and limiting the possession. So if you run it, you better get in the red zone, and when you get in the red zone, you better get 6 because if you settle for 3. There's a chance you get beat.
Do you think his absence is that big of a deal that they would change the mindset from pass to run?
Well, not necessarily specifically related to Ayuk, but the Giants can't stop the run. James Conner ran up and down the field on him, over 5 yards a carry. I think we're going to see Elijah Mitchell more tonight than we saw so far in the first 2 games. And the Niners are going to have success running it. And then you wonder, because Kyle loves to run. And in a game like this, especially being there on Tuesday, I think the Niners would love to shorten this game and just get on to the next week. And if they can run their way to do it and shorten the game altogether, they'll do it.
And do you think that would involve Debo at all, or is it going to be more primarily McCaffrey and, like you said, Eli Mitchell, and maybe you get a little bit of Mason in there as well? Is this going to be one of those games that we talk about where Kyle, when he runs it more than 30 times, they win?
I think you're going to see a lot of Debo in the run game tonight. I really do, because the Giants can't stop. They can't stop the run, and it takes the ball out of the air. The one wild card in this game is Kayvon Thibodeau coming off the edge. He's got 0 sacks. The Giants have 0 sacks in the first 2 games. But if you go back to last year's numbers with the same group, they were top half of the league in sacks. So you don't want to see that get going tonight. So maybe the best way to do that is to just dominate the time of possession. Just run it, and short pass him to death, really, if you can.
Willard and Dibs and Larry Krueger hanging out with us pregame as we get ready for 49ers and Giants. We're on the scene at Hilton Santa Clara, just outside Levi Stadium and at their tailgate, which is awesome. You should check it out before games every time the Niners are at home. You got to weigh in on this. You know that you were ahead of the game when it comes to Brock Purdy, but let's look at it now. And here's a question that I've been asking all day. I don't know if there's precedent, maybe Roethlisberger, I guess, but quarterback, certainly not out of the 7th round, a quarterback who comes onto the scene as a rookie, he's 23 years old, he goes 10-0 in the NFL, and there isn't like a fervor. there is, like, to me right now in sports, it should be Dion and then Shohei Ohtani from a few months ago. And then this should be like cover of Sports Illustrated type stuff. This is Mr. Irrelevant, never loses a football game. Why do you think it's not louder about Brock?
If you ask this question tomorrow, if he has a big night tonight, tonight's a big step in that direction. You beat the New York Giants, you get the attention of the New York media. I think that's a big one. Is it Dallas in week 5?
5, yeah.
I think that's also going to be a game if the Niners impressively beat Dallas. But it's a great question. I think what it speaks to is that there's still some doubt. There's some doubt, among the national people. I don't think anybody wants. I mean, Mark, you yourself put out a poll on Twitter a week ago or so, and you had lots of different options for Brock Purdy. One of them was not, he's a very good NFL quarterback. In my opinion, I was looking for that one because that would have gotten my vote.
Right.
I think he's a very good NFL quarterback.
It was a flawed poll, is what it was.
It was a flawed poll.
Yeah, you can say that.
It was absolutely a flawed Twitter poll.
But it was a great question.
It might be a great question, but the poll is
it was a great personal question, but it was a lousy poll question.
Thank you, Larry.
We're at the tailgate right now, Hilton Santa Clara. Some folks starting to clear out a little bit and head for the game. And by the way, speaking of clearing things out, it's exactly what Kevin, Candy, and Robert do with their business. Discount Plumbing, want to say hello to them
for
being here with us right here at Hilton Santa Clara. Enjoy the heck out of the games. You guys got great jerseys. You look great. Have an awesome time tonight. Thanks for being here. Yeah. All right. Now you can go back to whatever your mediocre question was going to be.
Well, I mean, if I could actually get one out here, shot clock's down to 3. You're ball dominant. Clock.
Throw the lob to Dwight Howard, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, future warrior, and we can get into that tomorrow or maybe next week. Brock Purdy in the deep ball. He didn't connect 3 times last week. Is this a thing, or are we all just trying to nitpick and find something to complain about with a 2-0 team?
Well, it's funny that you said that, because if those balls had hung in the air, if they had been shot too short, the reaction.
He's got no arm. He's got no arm.
Yeah. He's a good quarterback, but he can't throw the deep ball. Instead, he overthrew those guys. They were all close. It was all within a step. I'll tell you the one
that Debo was the one that I thought was the worst.
That was the one, though, that he doesn't really have an angle on that. He literally, it was straight down the middle, so he couldn't really see the separation there. So all you know is you don't want to get that picked. So you want to lead your guy. But, I mean, if you walked up to Brock this week and said, hey, those throws, he himself is being pretty hard on himself about them. He's like, hey, it's the NFL, man. I got to make those throws. But think about it this way, guys. If he made those throws, we're talking about probably a 40-point output. Instead, they scored 30 for whatever the 5th or 6th straight game or whatever
30.
it is. Yeah. I mean, what if they had put up 40 last week? I mean, that would have been really something. So I would say this. The arm strength thing with Brock, if you talk to the receivers, they'll say it's not a thing. He'll put it on your hands. It's got plenty of zip on the out. And that's really what it's about. It's about stick it in those small windows before the window closes.
Hey, what do you think of Daniel Jones as a player?
Really sporadic. Like, if you catch him on the right day, like I watched the all-22 of both Dallas Giants and Arizona Giants. The first 6 quarters, he was dreadful. I mean, horrible. Really, really bad. In the second half of Arizona game last week, he started using his legs. And he connected up top first play of the third quarter to Jalen Hyatt, the rookie receiver. And that seemed like it loosened him up a little bit. He's dangerous. Why? Because he's got the arm to give you an explosive play with the arm, but he also is a big man who can run. So what you notice on the film is guys take bad angles every single week because they're looking at a 6'5" guy rumbling, and they're thinking, oh, he can't be this fast. And then you take a bad angle, and a 15-yard run becomes a 40-yard run.
Is this defense susceptible to the mobile and the running quarterback? Because it's always been a thing in the past where quarterbacks who can run have given them some problems. Is that something tonight that the Giants can exploit in terms of, one of their only ways to move the ball on the ground?
Yeah, what's going to be interesting is the Niners in the second half last week went to the man-to-man defense against Puka Nacua to hug up on that coverage, and it worked. Do they stay with that? If you guys know, if you play man-to-man, you oftentimes turn your back on the quarterback, and he's got an open lane. But I think this narrative is a little false because we're talking about different kinds of runners. This guy's a big, fast guy who can, if you give him a lane, he can really get through it. They've gotten burned by Russell Wilson, who had a gaudy record against them, and it's guys that can kind of scramble around. They play a lot of zone, they play a lot of cover three with the single high, and a quarterback breaks contain like Russell has and holds the ball for 8, 9, 10 seconds in a zone defense, it just becomes kind of chaotic. And the other guy who really rumbled was Mariota last year, and I thought the real difficult thing, that to me is the better comparison because it's the read option. And where I think tonight is the biggest challenge is don't give Jones a big open lane, but in short yardage without Saquon Barkley, you got to come up out of your stance and you have to study that mesh point. You got to find the football because if he keeps it on the short yardage, he could run it for 3 or 4 first downs, and that could change the outlook.
Not to jump off of tonight's game at all, we'll circle back to it, but it's a huge piece of news today, and I do wonder what you think. How does the torn ACL for Trayvon Diggs change the Cowboys' defense?
Well, he's a phenomenal ball hawk. I just think that when things, he's a productive interceptor. He's got great ball skills. He's a big corner. And, the secret to pass coverage is pass coverage. There is no secret. You got to have guys. And the guy that the Niners signed and then cut today, Brown, I think it is, or no?
From Dallas.
Anthony Brown.
Yeah, he was probably going to be on their short list to re-sign. We'll see if he goes back to Dallas now or if the Niners figure out a way to keep him. But that's the one thing I did not like the Deshaun Jameson cut at the end of training camp because I just feel like when you have corners who can play, you do whatever you have to do to keep them. They kept 4 offensive linemen backups instead of Deshaun Jameson. If Deshaun Jameson were on this team tonight, he probably would start. So I think that was kind of a mistake in hindsight.
And what do you think, though, in terms of the cover guys that they have kept? And, Isaiah Oliver has been up and down in his career. He's looked pretty good last week with the interception. But how would you rate where their secondary is right now, especially considering the pass rush, the front 4, hasn't really gotten home much?
Well, Mooney's healthy. He's battled a lot of groin injuries, but he's healthy now. Lenore got a little dinged, but he's going to go tonight. Ambry Thomas has a kind of a bum knee. I think he's actually played tighter coverage, but I think he is going to go tonight. I think the Niner coverage has been good, but Oliver to me still is kind of a question mark. Steve Wilkes loves him, and you can kind of tell as the weeks go by, he handpicked this guy. He wanted this guy badly. And he made great plays last week in the second half. 3 big plays in the second half. But as far as how tight is the coverage, I would say they're like a B. It's not one of the tighter coverages. And it's also the concern is the depth over the course of 17 weeks. I mean, right now they're okay, but check with me in a month on that.
Line play in the NFL is difficult, I think, for fans to assess because we're watching the ball. But you see things like Nick Bosa has 1 sack in 7 games, and then you see PFF come out and say he's been the highest-rated defensive player both games. So what do you say about it? What has Nick Bosa's level of play been so far this year?
It's been really, really high. They slide the coverage to him. In both games, he's drawn holding penalties against the guy trying to block him. He's really strong against the run. He's pressuring the quarterback. He's just not sacking the quarterback. And let's be honest. I mean, Stafford's got a lightning quick release, and he threw 20 passes last week to Puka Nacua. Most of those were hitches, stop routes, swing passes. Get it out right now. If a quarterback wants to neutralize the rush and get it out right now, they can. So I think that's really what it's been. If you can get a quarterback into 3rd and long, I think you're going to see Nick pile up stats. But the other thing that he looks to me, guys, and you guys have seen a lot of him too. He just looks to me like a guy who, during all that off time, spent a lot of time lifting. He's very yoked up and tight.
Yeah,
I think you got to give that 3-4 weeks to
unravel a little bit, right?
To loosen up. I asked him this week. I said, "What part of your prep did you skip this week?" And he's like, "Well, I skipped a lot of the lifting that I would do. Obviously, we didn't practice. They did a walkthrough." I think you're going to see him look a little bit more limber and a little looser and probably a little bit more flexible as we get 3, 4, 5 weeks in.
Who do you look to benefit from him getting all of that attention, and he's getting doubled and tripled and they're sliding his way? Where is the other player on the D-line, and who should it be to come in and be able to benefit from what they're doing to try to counteract Nick?
Well, anybody who's on the opposite side. So Drake, I asked Drake in July, give me your thoughts on being on this line. And he's like, before I can even get the question out, he's like, I'm truly blessed. You know what I mean? Because he is truly blessed. It's like he's getting one-on-ones. It's like playing in the backcourt opposite Steph Curry. There's a gravity of Nick Bosa. There's gravity to Steph Curry. The defense leans towards Steph. It slides towards Nick. And that guarantees Drake one-on-ones, and then it's just about taking advantage.
Larry Krueger with us, Willard and Dibs, Hilton Santa Clara, outside the free tailgate, and we're getting closer and closer to kickoff now, inside of an hour away. What's been your thought on all the discussion about Christian McCaffrey usage? What's the way to handle that this year? How much Eli Mitchell does there need to be on a game-in and game-out basis?
Well, I do respect the hell out of Kyle Shanahan. You guys know I'm a big Kyle Shanahan fan.
You're a Shanahan stan.
I'm a Shanahan stan.
No, you're a Shanahan fan.
I'm a Shanahan stan.
There you go. I like mine better. I'm sorry.
You just couldn't let it sit.
You know the way this works, though, guys. When somebody says they're a big fan, you know what's coming next. Somebody's going to rip somebody.
And I just want you to keep it real for once.
Yeah. I'll say this. Shanahan's a great coach. His offense produces points. But sometimes he defers too much to Bobby T and too much to the players. You're the head coach. You want to be playing in the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl's in February. We're in September. If McCaffrey's not there in the playoffs, your chances of winning that game go way, way down. You have to stop listening to McCaffrey, stop listening to Bobby T. You get a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. If you gotta run out there and tackle the guy and drag him off, then do it. You have Eli Mitchell. You have J.P. Mason, who's fumbled a little bit. You can run it with Debo. You can run it with Ray. They've got other options there, and they've got to utilize those options.
You can give it a use check even if you want to just chew clock.
Yes.
Don't you guys think a slippery slope, though? I mean, you said 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. You get a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. You get Eli Mitchell in there on 3rd and 2, and you get 1 yard. You know exactly what this fan base will say. What on earth are you doing not giving the ball to McCaffrey? Because a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter is not that big of a lead.
To me, it's not about the fourth quarter. It's about earlier in the game when you can spell him and give Eli some carries in the second quarter and then in the third. And like what they do with Nick Bosa. Right. Bosa doesn't play every snap on defense.
I agree. You're right, Mark. It's not about necessarily the fourth quarter alone. It's about how many series are there in a game. And Elijah Mitchell, you could argue, is a better pick and slide guy between the tackles than McCaffrey. So when you get into a couple, short yardage situations, take McCaffrey off the field or use him, swing him out or play them together. But utilize your other backs. You've got other backs. You have to share. I mean, Shanahan admitted this week he's got to do a better job of sharing the load.
Right.
You can't have one guy shouldering the load, especially since, he's a very special player that the odds in Vegas go down on the Niners if McCaffrey's out for the year. So, let him spread it around a little bit. J.P. Mason you guys were there. He was very impressive in July and August.
Physical too.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bobby T, and he's the running back coach. And how does that work in terms of who's making the call on subs and all the rest of it? Is that the running back coach telling Kyle, we're going with this guy this series, or is that just strictly a Kyle thing?
Every team is different, but on this team, Bobby T should be called running back / head coach because he is the head coach of the running backs. If he wants it, he gets it. He doesn't want a guy, he doesn't get the guy. He doesn't want Trey Sermon Sermon's gone. 3rd round pick, 3rd round be damned.
Man.
You got to remember, Bobby T is maybe the greatest running back coach in the history of the game. He worked with Kyle's dad when Kyle was a ball boy. So he's not going to challenge the authority of Bobby T, but I'm sure he's expressed in meetings this week, hey, let's spread our usage around. Let's make sure when we do get to the finish line, we're fully intact.
You mentioned Vegas odds. I thought a fun thing to bring up. Spread's gone back up. It dropped a half point in the moment that Brandon Ayuk was announced out. and it has rebounded right back to the same spot, at least where I'm looking at the live line.
Yeah.
49ers back up to 10.5 tonight. What do you think of that?
I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch it. I just think that there's too. Well, I mean, I did wager,
What happened?
but I did a teaser this week. I took Niners and the Chiefs. So I got Niners -3, Chiefs -5 against the Bears.
Against the Bears.
I teased
It's a 7-point teaser?
7.5-point teaser.
That Chiefs-Bears game feels weird to me.
But the Bears' defensive coordinators being investigated.
They've had the worst day that any football team. Yesterday,
Jesus.
24 hours of Bears football was absolutely off the hook. But we know Justin Fields has the ability to sometimes take over a game. And for me, I'm not saying the Bears are going to win this game. It just scares me, like survivor pool stuff. Because also, don't forget, the Chiefs have played 8 quarters and have not looked right yet. Not even a little bit, to me.
The curse of Taylor Swift?
I don't know. Confirmed. Confirmed. They're dating.
Yeah, I just think the Chiefs at Arrowhead, if this game were at Soldier, I wouldn't touch it. But at Arrowhead, I like Kansas City. But, I mean, either way, you asked me about the 10.5. I just think that's right there, man. That is right there. The 49ers, if I knew what kind of game plan they had, I'd feel much better about it. Like, I think there's a very good chance that the Niners are going to come out and run the football and run it maybe a lot. And if they run it a lot, the clock goes by quickly. It's hard to build that lead.
Field position game.
Yeah, and the Niners, I mean, they're 3 games in here. They're due for some form of a turnover, and we could see it. All it would really take is 1 turnover and a lot of running, and that 10.5 looks very difficult. But if I had to go one way or another, I'm giving the 10. I'm giving the 10.5.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about it.
Thank you. I mean, was it that hard to actually weigh in? I mean,
I'm thinking 31-13, something like that.
Yeah. He's a radio guy. What are you going to do? I don't know.
I want him
Back
to
to
not.
you, Dibs.
I want him to not start with, well, geez, guys. I mean,
it's a great question.
I don't know.
That's a great point by you.
Thank you.
It was a great question.
Don't pander to him, Tim Jordan.
I think the question was, what do you think?
Right. Boy,
Great question.
That's a great question,
It is a
Mark.
great question.
Just one more for me real quick because we're getting close to being up against it. But if you're a George Kittle fantasy football owner, and I know a guy who knows a guy,
right?
Is he like on the downside, or is he due for actual targets in a football game?
There's a lot of weapons here. That's one.
Yeah.
He's also a little dinged up. So I think that, he's going in these games, but he's not 100%. And I think they're just trying to kind of ease him into the year because George, Brock is always going to look for the tight end, always. And so George is going to be a major factor. But once Latou went down, Willis is a rookie. I think the other guys are more special teamers. This team doesn't really have a second tight end that you could say, oh yeah. So I think he's out there gutting it out, but I don't think he's anywhere close to 100%.
Those were great answers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're right.
Get a room, you two.
I know.
Seriously.
Enjoy the game, bud. We'll see you in there.
My
Sounds
man.
good. Sounds good, fellas.
Larry.
Good to see you guys.
Krueger.